So is HSBC too big to indict? And bank fines, once an irritant, now very much a major cost of doing business, especially reputational cost. Let's talk about this with Reuters Breakingviews European editor Pierre Briançon. I guess they can't indict this bank because this bank would be brought down if it was indicted, right? And that's what saved them.
This is obviously what happened in the US, where there was a lot of fears that an indictment of the bank, or even the bank pleading guilty to criminal charges, would mean basically a death sentence. So yes, the question is, are some banks, some big banks, too big to indict? Because indicting them would mean...
It's funny how we changed the verb, isn't it, from fail to indict?
Because that would mean failure. Because that would mean failure, and that's the interesting thing about it, is that if it had accepted or pleaded guilty to criminal charges, it would have meant basically the end of the bank. And you're talking a major world financial institution here. And so that's the reason why they get away with a fine that is basically a slap on the wrist.
Right. Why not just double the fine? Why not fine them $5 billion and not indict them?
That's was probably at the heart of the discussions that went on between HSBC and the prosecutors, the US prosecutors. But I think the amount is one thing. It's just 8% of the pre-tax profit of the bank. So even though if it's a record fine, as we like to say in the media, it's not that much compared to HSBC. And the HSBC has pledged to overhaul its governance, its internal process and procedures. Of course, it swore that it will never, ever do it again, which is the least you can expect when allegations are about, laundering money. But
we're profoundly sorry for the past mistakes. We've said we're sorry, and we say it again. The HSBC of today is fundamentally different from the one that made those mistakes. That's Stuart Gulliver, the CEO.
Yeah, the term used by the bank is non-compliance, allegations of non-compliance, and that's what they agree to settle with a fine. But we know that the criminal charges were hanging over the threat was hanging over the whole discussion.
This of course, it comes just a few days after the Sanchart fine. It's a bigger story. We wonder who's next. We wonder what other stories are going to come out on the back of this. It's a reputational risk story for the bank and indeed for the sector once again, isn't it?
Yeah, it's not only reputation, by the way. It's of course reputational. It's also the fear that major investors would have to pull out of the banks. Pension funds, who have strict rules, that the banks might lose their license to operate in a given territory. If you're talking the US, it's not the smallest territory HSBC operates in. And so, those are real threats that are hanging over the banks, and that's the reason why the incentive to, on the other hand, of course, the threat and of the consequences show that no progress has been made over the last 4 or 5 years over how to deal with those too big to fail banks. Unwinding them still proves a nightmare. Or no one really has thought about it. They're making progress. We've seen recently with conversations between Paul Tucker and the US regulators. Cross-border cooperation is just beginning. And you wonder what they've been doing over the last 3 years, really.
All right, Pierre, many thanks for that. Pierre Briançon, Breakingviews European editor. That's it from me. If you want to watch our US show, of course, that comes on at 17:30 GMT, 12:30 Eastern. In just a moment, I'm going to talk with Heinrich Hiesinger, the CEO of ThyssenKrupp. Plenty to talk about with him. That's at 10:29 GMT. I'm Axel Threlfall. This is Reuters.